The transport ship cut through the darkness of space like a blade through water. Inside the cold metal walls, Daehyun sat with his hands chained to the floor. He was not alone. 20 other humans sat with him, all prisoners, all heading to the same fate. They were tribute. Payment from Earth to the Veltaran Empire. Payment to keep the alien masters happy. Daehyun looked at his reflection in the metal wall. He was 32 years old but felt much older. The war had aged him. The war that Earth lost 50 years ago. He remembered the stories his grandfather told him. Stories of when humans controlled their own world. When they answered to no one. Those days were gone now. Commander Hyejin walked past the prisoners. She wore the uniform of Earth's remaining military, but everyone knew it meant nothing. She was as much a prisoner as the rest of them. Her job was to deliver humans to the Veltaran capital world. Her job was to smile and pretend Earth was grateful for its chains. She stopped in front of Daehyun. Her eyes were hard, but he saw the pain behind them. "We arrive in 2 hours," she said. Her voice was flat, emotionless. "The king wants entertainment. You were chosen." Daehyun nodded slowly. He had expected this. When the Veltaran soldiers came to his settlement and picked him from the crowd, he knew. Strong humans were not chosen for labor. They were chosen for death. "What kind of entertainment?" asked a young man sitting near Daehyun. His name was Jinwoo, barely 20 years old. His hands shook with fear. Hyejin did not look at Jinwoo. She kept her eyes on Daehyun. "Arena combat. The king wants to show his guests how weak humans are. He wants them to laugh at us." The words hung in the air like poison. Several prisoners looked down at their feet. Some closed their eyes. Jinwoo started to cry quietly. But Daehyun remained still. He had seen death before. He had walked beside it for years during the last human resistance. Death did not frighten him anymore. "Who do I fight?" Daehyun asked. "Mireille," Hyejin answered. The name was spoken with reverence and fear. "The king's champion. She has won 300 battles. She has killed 200 warriors from a dozen different species. No one has ever broken her sword. No one has ever made her bleed." Daehyun absorbed this information. 300 victories. A perfect record. The Veltarans would not risk their champion against someone who might actually win. This was execution disguised as sport. "Can I have a weapon?" he asked. Hyejin almost smiled, but the expression died before it formed. "You can request one item. They will probably refuse, but you can ask." "My grandfather's knife," Daehyun said. "It is in my belongings. Just a combat knife. Old steel, nothing special." Hyejin studied his face. "I will ask. Do not hope for mercy, Daehyun. The Veltarans do not know that word." She walked away, her boots echoing on the metal floor. The other prisoners stayed quiet. They knew that Daehyun's death would come first, but theirs would follow soon enough. The Veltarans always needed more entertainment. The transport ship shuddered as it entered the atmosphere of Krishar, the Veltaran capital world. Through the small windows, Daehyun could see the planet below. It was beautiful in a terrible way. Massive cities of crystal and metal stretched across the surface. Ships moved through the sky like schools of fish. This was the heart of an empire that controlled thousands of worlds, and Earth was just one small piece of that empire. One defeated, broken piece. The ship landed with a heavy thud. Veltaran soldiers entered the holding area. They were tall, taller than any human, with scales that shimmered in the light. Their eyes were cold and reptilian. They looked at the humans the way a person might look at insects. "Daehyun," one of them said, his voice hissing through sharp teeth. "You come." Daehyun stood. His chains fell away, released by the soldiers. He walked forward, his movements calm and steady. He would not give them the satisfaction of seeing him afraid. The soldiers led him through corridors of polished stone. Everything on Kreshar was designed to impress, to intimidate. The ceilings were impossibly high. The walls were carved with scenes of Veltaran victories over other species. Daehyun saw humans in those carvings. Humans kneeling, humans defeated. They brought him to a preparation chamber. Inside, a Veltaran official waited. This one was different from the soldiers. He wore robes instead of armor. His scales were decorated with gold and jewels. "Human," the official said, looking at a data pad. "You are scheduled for execution in the Grand Colosseum. The king himself will watch. You should be honored." "I requested a weapon," Daehyun said simply. The official laughed. It was a strange sound, like rocks grinding together. "A weapon? You face Mireille with a weapon? That is amusing." He tapped his data pad. "Your commander sent a message. She asks for you to carry a knife." Some family heirloom. He gestured to a table. Daehyun's grandfather's knife lay there. It was old, the handle worn from years of use. The blade was steel, simple and strong. His grandfather had carried it in the last war against the Velterans. He had died with that knife in his hand. You may have it, the official said. It will make no difference. Mirai's sword is forged from star metal. It can cut through ship armor. Your little knife will break like glass. Daehyun picked up the knife. It felt right in his hand, familiar. Thank you, he said. The official looked confused. You thank me for giving you a useless weapon? I thank you for underestimating me, Daehyun replied. The official's confusion turned to anger, but before he could respond, horns sounded throughout the building. Deep resonating sounds that vibrated in the chest. The call to the arena. It is time, the official said. Walk to your death, human. Try to die with dignity. It will be over quickly. Soldiers escorted Daehyun through more corridors. He could hear sounds now. Thousands of voices. Cheering, laughing, shouting. The crowd was gathering. They came from across the empire to watch the king's games. To watch lesser species fight and die for their amusement. They brought him to a massive gate. Beyond it, he could hear the roar of the crowd. The sound was like an ocean, overwhelming and endless. One of the soldiers looked at him. When the gate opens, walk to the center. Do not run. Do not try to escape. If you do, we will kill you slowly instead of quickly. Daehyun nodded. He held his grandfather's knife loosely at his side. He thought of Earth. He thought of all the humans who lived under Velteran rule. He thought of Heejin's eyes, full of helpless rage. He thought of young Jinwoo, crying in the transport ship. This was not just about him anymore. This was about every human who had to bow their head to an alien master. Every human who had to pretend to be weak, to be grateful for their chains. The gate began to open. Light flooded in, blinding after the dim corridors. The crowd's roar became deafening. Daehyun took a deep breath and walked forward. He walked into the arena. He walked into history. And he carried with him 50 years of human anger, human pain, and human pride that had never been truly broken. The gate closed behind him with a sound like thunder. There was no going back now. The grand coliseum of Kresher was larger than anything Daehyun had ever seen. The arena floor stretched before him like a field of black stone. Above, the seats rose in massive circles, layer upon layer, reaching toward the sky. Thousands of aliens filled those seats, maybe tens of thousands. He could not count them all. They represented dozens of species from across the Velteran Empire. Some had fur, some had scales, some had skin like metal. Some had 2 arms, some had 6. Some had faces that almost looked human. Others had faces that looked like nightmares. But they all had one thing in common. They were here to watch him die. Daehyun walked to the center of the arena. The black stone was smooth under his feet. He could see his reflection in it, dark and distorted. He stopped and waited. The crowd's noise washed over him like waves. He could hear laughter, shouting, the sounds of bets being placed. To them, this was entertainment. To him, it was survival. A horn sounded deep and powerful. The crowd fell silent. Daehyun looked up and saw a platform floating above the arena. It defied gravity, held in place by technology he did not understand. On that platform sat a massive throne, and on that throne sat King Torvin. The king was enormous even for a Velteran. His scales were deep red, almost black. Crystalline horns grew from his head, catching the light and throwing rainbow colors across his face. He wore armor made of precious metals and a cape that seemed to be made of liquid starlight. King Torvin stood. His voice boomed across the arena, amplified by hidden speakers. Welcome, honored guests. Welcome to today's exhibition. The crowd roared in response. Today we witness the price of rebellion. Today we see what happens to species that dare challenge the Velteran Empire. More cheering. Daehyun stood motionless, his face calm. 50 years ago the humans fought us, the king continued. They lost. They begged for mercy. We granted them life, but they must remember their place. Today a human warrior stands before us. He will face our champion. He will fall, and the galaxy will remember that humans are nothing but amusing pets. The crowd laughed. The sound cut through Daehyun like knives, but he did not react. He had learned long ago that showing pain only encouraged bullies. Another gate opened on the opposite side of the arena. The crowd's laughter turned to cheers. Through the gate walked Mirai. She was magnificent and terrifying. She stood nearly 7 feet tall, her body covered in armor that seemed to be part metal, part living organism. It shifted colors as she moved, from silver to blue to violet. Her face was visible through her helmet. She had the same reptilian features as all Velterans, but there was something else in her eyes. Intelligence, experience, confidence. In her hand, she carried a sword that glowed with inner fire. The blade was as long as Daehyun was tall. Energy crackled along its edge, blue and white. Star metal, the official had called it. A weapon that could cut through anything. Mirai walked toward Daehyun. Her movements were graceful despite her size and armor. She stopped 20 feet away and studied him. Her eyes traveled from his face to his simple clothes to the small knife in his hand. She smiled. Not a cruel smile, but a smile of pity. "Human," she said. Her voice was clear and strong. "The king has ordered me to humiliate you before I kill you. I will do as commanded. You may beg for a quick death if you wish. I might grant it." Daehyun looked at her sword, then at her face. "I do not beg," he said quietly. Mirai's smile faded. "Then you will suffer." The king raised his hand. The crowd fell silent again. "Let the exhibition begin." Mirai moved. She was fast, faster than Daehyun expected. She closed the distance between them in seconds. Her sword came down in a sweeping arc aimed at his shoulder. Not to kill, to wound, to make him bleed for the crowd's amusement. Daehyun moved aside. The blade missed him by inches. He could feel the heat from the energy field around it. The crowd gasped in surprise. They had expected him to freeze in fear. Mirai attacked again, this time a horizontal slash. Again, Daehyun moved. His feet found their rhythm, the old patterns his grandfather had taught him. Move like water, flow around the threat, never meet force with force. But Mirai was too fast, too skilled. The third strike caught him across the arm. The energy blade cut through his sleeve and into his skin. Blood welled up dark red against his pale skin. Pain shot through him, but he did not cry out. The crowd cheered. Miri circled him, her sword ready. "You are faster than I expected," she said. "But it changes nothing." She attacked again. This time a series of rapid strikes. Daehyun dodged some, but not all. Another cut across his chest. A shallow wound on his leg. Each cut was precise, calculated. She was a master of her weapon, and she was playing with him. Blood ran down Daehyun's arm, dripped from his fingers. He could feel his strength fading. But he did not panic. He watched her. He studied her movements. Every warrior had patterns. Every style had weaknesses. He just needed to see them. His grandfather had told him stories about the old wars. Wars before the Velterans came. Wars between human nations. "We never had the strongest weapons," his grandfather had said. "We never had the thickest armor. But we had one thing. We could adapt. We could learn. We could find the weakness in anything." Daehyun watched Mirai attack. He saw how she favored her right side, how she put extra force into downward strikes, how her sword's energy field pulsed in a rhythm. Small details, tiny patterns. The crowd was laughing again. They thought the fight was already over. Just a matter of time before the human collapsed from blood loss. Mirai came at him again, faster now. She was getting bored with the slow death. Her sword swept toward his throat, a killing blow despite the king's orders for humiliation. Daehyun reacted on instinct. He brought up his grandfather's knife and caught her blade. Metal rang against energy. For a moment, the two weapons locked together, and in that moment, Daehyun felt something, a vibration in Mirai's sword, a humming frequency that traveled through his knife and into his bones. The energy field was not solid. It was maintained by the crystal matrix in the blade, and matrices had harmonic frequencies, frequencies that could be disrupted. Mirai pulled back, surprised. No one had ever blocked her sword before. "You are full of surprises, human," she said. There was respect in her voice now. "But this ends now." She raised her sword high. The energy field flared brighter, hotter. She was going to put everything into this strike. One final blow to split him in half. Daehyun stood still. His knife hung at his side. Blood dripped onto the black stone. The crowd leaned forward in anticipation. Mirai brought her sword down with all her strength. The blade screamed through the air, and Daehyun saw it. He saw the pattern. He saw the weakness. He saw exactly where to strike. His grandfather's voice echoed in his mind. "Every weapon has a flaw. Every enemy has a weakness. Find it and survival becomes possible." The sword descended. Daehyun moved. and everything changed. Time seemed to slow down. Taehyun could see every detail of Mirai's descending sword, the way the energy crackled and danced along the blade, the slight wobble in her grip as she put all her strength into the strike, the exact angle of the blade as it fell toward him. He moved, not backward, not to the side, forward. His body twisted, using the momentum Mirai's own attack had created. Her sword passed so close to his face that he could feel the heat. His left hand reached out and caught her armored wrist, guiding it past him, using her strength against her, redirecting her momentum. His right hand came up. The old combat knife, worn and simple, moved in a precise arc. 50 years of human knowledge went into that movement. Knowledge gathered in secret. Knowledge passed from engineer to engineer, soldier to soldier. The Velterans had forced humans to build their weapons to maintain their technology, and in doing so they had taught humans everything about those weapons, including their weaknesses. The knife struck Mirai's sword at a single point, a specific spot on the blade where the crystal matrix focused the energy field. The angle was exact. The force was precise, and the frequency of the strike matched the harmonic resonance of the crystal. For one heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the sword screamed. The sound was like metal tearing, like glass breaking, like a star dying. The energy field collapsed in on itself. The crystal matrix shattered. Cracks spread through the star metal blade like lightning through a dark sky. And then it exploded. The sword broke into 1,000 pieces. Fragments of star metal flew through the air, glowing with dying energy. The explosion threw Mirai backward. She hit the ground hard, her armor cracked and smoking. Her perfect weapon, her unbreakable blade, the symbol of 300 victories, lay in ruins around her. The arena fell into absolute silence. Daehyun stood in the center of the destruction. His grandfather's knife was still in his hand, unmarked and whole. Blood still ran down his arm from Mirai's earlier cuts, but he was standing and she was on the ground. He walked toward her slowly. His footsteps were the only sound in the entire Colosseum. Thousands of aliens watched in complete shock. None of them moved. None of them spoke. They could not believe what they had just seen. Mirai tried to rise. Her armor was damaged and she moved with difficulty. She looked up at Daehyun as he approached. In her eyes there was no longer confidence. There was disbelief. There was something that might have been fear. Daehyun stopped beside her. He knelt down and placed the edge of his knife against her throat. The blade was old steel, simple and plain, but it was sharp and it was pressed against one of the few unarmored parts of her body. He could kill her. One movement. 1 second. The champion who had killed 200 warriors would die by the hand of a human, a species everyone believed was weak. Yield, Daehyun said quietly. His voice was calm, tired. Not angry. Not triumphant. Just human. Mirai stared at him. Then slowly she lowered her eyes. In Velteran culture, this was a sign of submission, of defeat. I yield, she whispered. The spell broke. The crowd erupted. But it was not cheering. It was chaos. Aliens shouted in their various languages. Some stood up, pointing at the arena. Others sat frozen in disbelief. Confusion and shock rippled through the Colosseum like a shockwave. On his floating platform, King Torvin gripped the arms of his throne. His claws dug into the metal, leaving deep scratches. His face was twisted with rage and disbelief. This was not supposed to happen. This could not happen. His champion defeated, his perfect warrior broken by a human. Daehyun stood up. He stepped back from Mirai and waited. He knew what would come next. The king would order his death. Soldiers would rush into the arena. They would shoot him or beat him or tear him apart. That was fine. He had done what he needed to do. He had shown the galaxy that humans were not broken, not weak, not pets. But before the king could speak, Mirai stood up. Her armor was damaged and she moved with pain, but she stood. She looked up at the king's platform. Her voice rang out across the arena, amplified by her armor's systems. By the laws of Veltara, she called out, I declare Daehyun victor of this combat. By the warrior's code, he is my equal. By the ancient traditions, he cannot be executed without trial by combat. The crowd's chaos grew louder. King Torvin's face turned darker. He is a tribute, the king shouted. A prisoner. The law does not apply. The law applies to all who stand in this arena, Mirai replied. Her voice was strong despite her defeat. That has been our tradition for 1,000 years. Will you break tradition, my king? Will you show the galaxy that Velteran honor means nothing? Daehyun watched this exchange with growing surprise. He had not expected this. Mirai was defending him. The warrior who had been ordered to humiliate him was now protecting him with her own laws. King Torvin stood up. His whole body shook with rage. The platform trembled. "This is not over," he hissed. "Guards! Take the human to the holding cells. And take Mirai as well. I will decide their fates later." Soldiers rushed into the arena. They surrounded Daehyun, their weapons pointed at him. But they did not shoot. They did not attack. They simply gestured for him to walk. He did, his knife still in his hand. No one tried to take it from him. As he walked past Mirai, she looked at him. "How?" she asked simply. "You relied on your weapon," Daehyun replied. "I relied on knowledge." "What knowledge could break star metal?" she demanded. Daehyun almost smiled. "The knowledge that humans built your weapons. We maintained them. We studied them. For 50 years we learned everything about Velteran technology. Every strength, every weakness. You thought you had broken us, but we were just learning, waiting, adapting." Mirai's eyes widened. "There are more like you? More humans who know these things?" "There are thousands of us," Daehyun said quietly. "Scattered across your empire. Tribute workers, engineers, servants, all of us watching. All of us learning. All of us waiting for the moment when we would remind you of something important." "What is that?" Mirai asked. "That humanity never surrendered," Daehyun replied. "We only bent. And bent things can spring back." The guards pushed him forward, separating him from Mirai. As he walked toward the gate, he looked up at the crowd. Thousands of aliens stared back at him, and in their eyes he saw something new. Something that had not been there before. Doubt. They doubted Velteran strength. They doubted their empire's invincibility. One human with one knife, with one strike, had planted a seed of doubt in their minds. And doubt could grow into something more. Something dangerous, something like hope. Daehyun walked through the gate back into the darkness of the corridors. He could hear the crowd behind him still shouting, still arguing. He could hear the king's voice trying to restore order, but order was breaking. The perfect empire had been shown to have cracks. And cracks, if pressure was applied correctly, could split even the strongest stone. His grandfather had been right. Every enemy had a weakness. The Velteran's weakness was their confidence, their belief that they were superior to everyone else. Daehyun had shattered that belief along with Mirai's sword, and shattering a belief was more powerful than shattering any weapon. The guards locked him in a cell. It was cleaner than the transport ship, larger with actual furniture. They were confused about how to treat him. Was he a prisoner? A warrior? Something else? Daehyun sat on the bed and looked at his grandfather's knife. The blade was still perfect, still strong, still ready, just like humanity. The cell was quiet, but outside the walls, the Velteran capital world was not. Daehyun could hear the distant sounds of commotion, shouting, arguments, the rumble of ships taking off and landing. The news of what happened in the arena was spreading like fire through dry grass. He sat on the bed and tended to his wounds. The cuts Mirai had given him were not deep, but they needed care. A medical drone had come to the cell an hour ago offering treatment. Daehyun had refused. He did not trust Velteran medicine. Instead, he used strips torn from his shirt to bandage the wounds. Old methods. Human methods. As he worked, he thought about what would happen next. The king would want him dead. That was certain. But Mirai had invoked warrior law, and apparently that law was taken seriously by the Velterans. It bought him time. How much time, he did not know. The door to his cell opened. Daehyun looked up, expecting guards. Instead, he saw Commander Hyejin. She looked different than she had on the transport ship. Her face was harder, her eyes brighter. She walked into the cell and the guards closed the door behind her, leaving them alone. "Daehyun," she said. Her voice shook slightly. "What have you done?" "I survived," he replied simply. "You did more than survive," Hyejin said. She sat down across from him. "Do you know what is happening out there? The entire empire is talking about you. Half the species in the Dominion are questioning Velteran strength. The king is in emergency meetings with his advisors. Ships are leaving orbit, heading back to their homeworlds to report what they saw." Daehyun absorbed this information. "Good," he said. "Good?" Hyejin stared at him. "Daehyun, they might execute every human in the empire for this. The king could order Earth itself destroyed." "He could have done that at any time," Daehyun replied. "Earth is valuable to them. Our engineers, our workers, our resources. They will not destroy us, But they might respect us now. Hyejin shook her head. You broke their champion's sword. You humiliated them in front of the entire galaxy. The king will not forgive this. I did not ask for forgiveness, Daehyun said. I was brought here to die as entertainment. I chose to live as a warrior instead. If that angers the king, then he should not have ordered a warrior to fight me. Before Hyejin could respond, the door opened again. This time it was Mirai who entered. She no longer wore her damaged armor. Instead, she wore simple robes. Her scales were unmarked, but Daehyun could see bruises forming where the explosion had thrown her against the ground. Hyejin stood up quickly, her hand moving toward a weapon she did not carry. But Mirai raised her hands, showing they were empty. I did not come to fight, Mirai said. I came to talk. Talk then, Daehyun replied. Mirai sat down on the floor, crossing her legs. It was a casual position, non-threatening. I have been a warrior for 20 years, she began. I have fought in 300 battles. I have killed enemies from a dozen species. I have defended the Empire with my blood and my blade. And in all that time I never questioned my purpose. She looked at Daehyun. Until today, you broke my sword. But you did something else. You showed me that I do not understand combat. Not truly. I relied on strength, on superior weapons, on the belief that Velterans were simply better than everyone else. And now, Daehyun asked, now I wonder what else I do not understand, Mirai said quietly. You said humans have been studying us for 50 years, learning our weaknesses. That means you have been planning, waiting. How many other humans know what you know? Daehyun considered his answer. Giving information could be dangerous, but keeping it secret might be more dangerous. Enough, he said finally. The tribute system was supposed to break us. Instead, it gave us access to every part of your empire. Every ship we maintained, we learned its weaknesses. Every weapon we built, we memorized its flaws. Every city we cleaned, we mapped its defenses. You treated us like slaves. But slaves see everything, Hyejin gasped. Daehyun, you cannot tell her this. Why not? Daehyun replied. It is too late to stop now. The sword is already broken. The truth might as well be spoken. Mirai stood up slowly. She walked to the window of the cell and looked out at the city. The king wants you executed, she said. He wants to make an example of you, to show the Empire that defying Veltara means death. I expected that, Daehyun said. But he cannot, Mirai continued, not without breaking our laws. And if he breaks our laws, he shows weakness. Other species will see that Veltaran honor means nothing. His allies will question their loyalty. His enemies will grow bold. She turned back to face them. So he is trapped. He cannot kill you without consequences, but he cannot let you live freely. You are a problem he does not know how to solve. What will he do? Hyejin asked. He will negotiate, Mirai replied. He will offer Daehyun a choice. Death for you but mercy for Earth, or life for you but at a cost. Daehyun stood up. What cost? That is what I came to discuss, Mirai said. The king's advisors are arguing about how to handle this situation. Some want to execute all human tributes as punishment. Some want to increase Earth's tribute payments. Some want to forbid humans from working on military technology. And some want to make a deal, Daehyun guessed. Mirai nodded. There are advisors who understand that today changed everything. They know that other subjugated species are watching. If humans can rise up, so can others. The Empire could face rebellions across a dozen worlds. So they want to prevent that, Hyejin said. Yes, Mirai confirmed. They want to elevate Earth's status. Not as equals, not yet, but as something more than tribute slaves. They want to give humans a reason to support the Empire instead of undermining it. Daehyun walked to the window and stood beside Mirai. Outside, he could see the massive city of Krishar. Millions of aliens lived here from hundreds of species, all of them part of the Veltaran Empire. All of them controlled by the king. What do you think I should do? He asked Mirai. She looked surprised by the question. Why do you ask me? Because you defended me in the arena, Daehyun replied. You could have stayed silent. Let the king execute me. Instead, you invoked warrior law. Why? Mirai was quiet for a long moment. Because you were right, she finally said. I relied on my weapon. I thought superior technology made me superior. But you showed me that intelligence matters more than strength. Strategy matters more than power. I spent 20 years believing I was the greatest warrior in the Empire. You defeated me in minutes. That taught me humility. She looked at him directly. And it taught me respect. You are a warrior, Daehyun, a true warrior. Not because of your weapon or your strength, but because of your mind. Your people were defeated, enslaved, humiliated, but you never stopped learning. Never stopped preparing. That is the mark of a warrior. Daehyun studied her face. He saw sincerity there, and perhaps something else. The beginning of doubt in the system she had served her entire life. If the king offers me a deal, Daehyun said slowly, I will accept it. But only if it benefits all of Earth, not just me. That is what they will offer, Mirai said. Your life for Earth's elevation. You become an advisor. Earth becomes a protectorate instead of a tribute world. Humans gain limited autonomy. Limited, Hijin repeated bitterly. Still not free. Freedom is earned gradually, Mirai replied. Today, Daehyun earned respect. Respect is the first step toward freedom. The door opened once more. A Veltaran official entered, the same one who had mocked Daehyun before the fight. But now his expression was different. Less confident? More careful, Daehyun, the official said. The king requests your presence. He wishes to discuss terms. Daehyun looked at Hyejin, then at Mirai. Then I should not keep him waiting. As he walked toward the door, Mirai spoke again. Daehyun, thank you. He stopped. For what? For reminding me that strength is not the same as power, and that being defeated is not the same as being destroyed. She bowed her head slightly, a gesture of respect. I would be honored to learn from you. Daehyun nodded. Then perhaps we both have something to teach each other. He walked out of the cell, following the official through the corridors of power. Behind him he left two people forever changed. A human commander who had found hope, and a Veltaran warrior who had found doubt. Both were dangerous things for an empire built on certainty. 1 year had passed since the day Daehyun broke a sword and changed the galaxy. He stood on a balcony in the human embassy on Kreshar, looking out at the city. The view was the same as it had been from his cell window. Tall buildings of crystal and metal, ships moving through the sky, the heart of the Veltaran Empire. But everything else had changed. Below, in the streets, he could see humans walking freely. Not as prisoners, not as slaves, as citizens of a protectorate world. They wore Earth's colors proudly. They walked with their heads up. Some even walked alongside Veltarans as equals, discussing business or engineering projects. It was not complete freedom. Earth still answered to the Empire, but it was a beginning. Behind him, the door to the balcony opened. Commander Hyejin walked out carrying 2 cups of tea. She had been promoted to Ambassador Hyejin now. Her job was no longer to deliver human tributes. Her job was to represent Earth's interests in the Empire. You look thoughtful, she said, handing him a cup. I am always thoughtful, Daehyun replied, accepting the tea. It is how I survive, Hyejin smiled. Still the warrior, even after a year of peace. There is no such thing as peace, Daehyun said quietly. Only pauses between conflicts. And this pause will not last forever. His words were not pessimistic. They were realistic. The treaty Earth had signed with the Empire was fragile. King Torvin had agreed to elevate Earth's status, but only because his advisors had convinced him it was necessary. The king still hated humans. He still wanted revenge for the humiliation in the arena, but he was trapped by his own laws and his own politics. Other species had watched what happened with Earth. They had seen a subjugated world gain better treatment through strength and intelligence. Now they wanted the same. Rebellions had started on 3 worlds. Not violent rebellions, but demands for renegotiation of treaties. The Empire was being forced to evolve or break apart. The council meeting is in an hour, Hyejin said. Are you ready? As ready as I can be, Daehyun replied. The council was a new creation formed as part of the treaty. Representatives from Earth, Veltara, and several other species met regularly to discuss Empire policy. It gave subject species a voice, even if that voice was often ignored. But it was better than silence. Daehyun's role in the council was unique. He was listed as a military advisor, but everyone knew his real purpose. He was a symbol, a reminder that humans were not helpless, that they could fight back if pushed too far. They finished their tea and went inside. The embassy was busy with activity. Human staff worked alongside alien assistants, preparing documents and presentations. A year ago, this would have been unthinkable. Now it was normal. As they walked through the halls, a young human woman approached. Her name was Sora, and she was one of the new generation of Earth's diplomats. Young people who had grown up under Veltaran rule but now saw possibility for something better. Ambassador Hyejin, Advisor Daehyun, Sora said, bowing slightly. I have the latest reports from Earth. The new Defense Force has completed training. 5,000 volunteers ready for deployment. Defense Force, Hyejin repeated, savoring the words. Not tribute warriors. Not prisoners. An actual military force. A small one, Daehyun cautioned. We must not appear threatening. Not yet. They know that, Sora assured him. The training focused on protection, not aggression. As the treaty allows. Daehyun nodded. The treaty gave Earth the right to a limited defense force. It was a compromise. The Velterans did not want to give humans weapons, but they also needed to show their other subject species that cooperation had benefits. So they allowed Earth to train soldiers, as long as those soldiers stayed on Earth and were only for planetary defense. Of course, soldiers were soldiers, and training was training. If war ever came, Earth would have 5,000 trained warriors instead of none. It was not much, but it was a start. They reached the council chamber. It was a large room with seats arranged in a circle. No one sat higher than anyone else. Another symbol of the Empire's attempt at appearing fair. King Torvin was already there, sitting in his chair. He looked older than he had a year ago. The stress of managing an empire on the edge of change was wearing on him. His advisors sat beside him, their faces neutral and professional. Representatives from other species filled the other seats. Mirai was there, now serving as a liaison between the Velteran military and the council. She had changed in the past year. She no longer wore armor to these meetings. She dressed in simple robes and she listened more than she spoke. She had become an advocate for reform, arguing that the Empire's strength came from diversity, not domination. This had made her unpopular with traditional Velterans, but she had earned respect from the subject species. The meeting began with routine matters. Trade agreements, resource allocation, diplomatic protocols. Daehyun listened but did not speak. He saved his voice for moments that mattered. Then the discussion turned to military technology. A representative from one of the Empire's allied species proposed that humans should be allowed to work on military projects again, but with oversight. King Torvin's response was immediate. Absolutely not. Humans have proven they cannot be trusted with such knowledge. With respect, Your Majesty, Mirai said, humans already have such knowledge. Banning them from official projects just means they keep that knowledge hidden. Allowing them to work openly with oversight lets us monitor what they learn. And what makes you think we can monitor them? The king demanded. They hid their learning for 50 years. Because now they have something to lose, Daehyun said quietly. Every head turned toward him. A year ago, Earth had nothing. We were slaves with no hope. So we learned secrets and waited for a chance to rebel. Now we have rights. We have status. We have hope for improvement. Why would we risk that through rebellion? You want us to believe humans are suddenly loyal? King Torvin asked, his voice dripping with skepticism. Not loyal, Daehyun replied. Practical. We want Earth to survive and prosper. Fighting the Empire directly would ensure our destruction. Working within the Empire gives us a path to something better. We choose the path that benefits us most. Honest, at least, one of the advisors muttered. Honesty is what we need, Mirai added. The old system was built on lies. We pretended subject species were grateful for our rule. They pretended to obey while planning resistance. Both sides were dishonest. A system built on lies eventually collapses. The debate continued for another hour. In the end, a compromise was reached. Humans could work on non-critical military projects with Velteran supervisors. It was a small victory, but it was progress. After the meeting, Daehyun walked through the embassy gardens. They had been designed to look like an Earth park with grass and trees from home. It was a small piece of Earth transplanted to an alien world. Mirai found him there. She walked up quietly and stood beside him, looking at the trees. You handled the king well today, she said. I spoke the truth, Daehyun replied. It is often the most effective weapon. Is it true? Mirai asked. What you said about humans choosing practicality over rebellion. Daehyun was quiet for a moment. Partly, he finally said. We do want Earth to prosper, but we also remember what was done to us. The humiliation, the loss. Humans have long memories, Mirai. We do not forget easily and we do not forgive easily. So you would rebel if given the chance? I would prefer not to, Daehyun said. Rebellion means death, means destruction. I have seen enough of both. But if the Empire returns to its old ways, if we are pushed back into slavery, then yes, we will fight. And this time the galaxy knows we can. Mirai nodded slowly. That is why the treaty works. Mutual benefit backed by mutual threat. We give you freedom because we fear the cost of taking it away. You accept partial freedom because you fear the cost of demanding more. A balance of fear, Daehyun said. Not ideal, but functional. Perhaps one day it can become more, Mirai suggested. Perhaps fear can transform into respect. Respect into trust. Trust into genuine alliance. Why, perhaps, Daehyun agreed. But that will take time. Generations, maybe. The wounds are too fresh. The anger is too deep. Mirai looked at him. You are a patient man. I am a survivor, Daehyun corrected. Patience is part of survival. A ship appeared in the sky above them, descending toward the embassy landing pad. It bore Earth's insignia, a blue and green circle representing the home planet. The delegation from Earth, Heejin called from the embassy entrance. They have arrived. Daehyun and Mirai walked back inside. The delegation consisted of Earth's new civilian government representatives. They had come to discuss further improvements to the treaty. More autonomy. More rights. The slow, careful process of reclaiming human dignity. As they prepared to meet the delegation, Daehyun looked at his reflection in a window. He saw an older man now. The past year had aged him. But he also saw something else. He saw hope. A year ago, he had walked into an arena expecting death. Instead, he had walked out having changed history. Not through violence, though violence had been part of it, but through demonstration. He had shown the galaxy that humans were not broken, that they still had strength, that they still had pride. One strike, one shattered sword, one moment had cascaded into revolution. Not a violent revolution, but a revolution nonetheless. The